Storytelling is always going to be the thing that wins for me because it's easy. It flows. There's a villain, which is the problem, and there is a hero, which is the solution. If you want to be the voice that people listen to, A, invest in your own personal brand. Two, encourage people within your company to publish content so that they also become authorities and they also become thought leaders. So you want your brand name to become so recognizable that even before people start doing that search on search engines, they're already thinking of you. So that when they look through the top 10 on the search engines and they see your brand name, you are the first result they click on, whether you're ranking number 1, 2, or 5 or whatever. That is the power of brand for me.
Hey, welcome to the Message Market Fit podcast. I'm your host, Chris Silvestri, and if you're new here, this is a show where I chat with B2B SaaS folks in marketing, product, growth, and founders about how they join the conversation already happening in their customers' minds. We dive deep into their thinking, their systems, and their playbooks to see how they empathize with their audience and speak to them in a way that resonates, so they're compelled to take action. Join us and learn how you too can shape your messaging strategy and write copy that truly resonates and differentiates you. I'm super excited about my guest today, Chima Mmeje. Chima is the Senior Content Marketing Manager at Moz, a leading SEO tool and recent client of mine. In this episode, we chat about creating content that truly resonates with users, the importance of building personal brand authority in the AI era, how to approach omnichannel content marketing effectively, and why quality traffic matters more than quantity. Let's dive right in. Hey Chima, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris.
I wanted to start with a kind of a big question, but when you think about content that you've written that didn't just rank well, but also resonated, shifted something for the brand, what do you think made it so powerful?
That's a good one. I don't know about shifting something for the brand. Something I've learned is that it's never really about the brand. It's more about the end user. So all of the stuff that I've written, maybe even for my own brand, Zenith Copy, I haven't really done a lot of writing for Moz, if I'm being honest, but all of the stuff that was featured on the Moz blog, on my own website, that have really resonated with people, have been stuff that have helped people to solve a problem that they're experiencing right now. So it's relevant. It's around something that is going on in the industry right now. People are like scrambling for ways to get ahead of it. That is the kind of content that always resonates well. So the brand is second, the user is first.
So there should always be relevancy, but also urgency, it seems like.
Yeah, it's always something that's timely. Like, for example, when the gum happened, we're quick to do like a roundup post. Tom Kappa did several Whiteboard Friday with an article. That kind of content really did well for the blog. And that was because we were putting out that content as it was happening. Same thing when we did the prediction post last year. It was one of our most read contents. And the reason why it was so successful, I published that, was because it was timely. People are looking for, what's going to happen in next year in 2024? How can we get ahead of those changes? What do we need to know to plan a strategy for the new year? They're looking for that guidance. So that kind of content will always perform well, both for the person who's reading it and for the brand.
Which makes me think, if it's something that's relevant and timely, a lot of people are going to write about it. So how do you differentiate what you write?
So I think the key way is by featuring experts. So that it's not just my voice that is like contributing to the echo. It's multiple voices that people know. That is what always makes it stand out. So I always know that if I put out content, even if it's the same content that everybody else is doing because it's relevant and it's happening right now, I already know that my stuff is going to blow everybody else out of the water because I'm featuring more experts that people know. And that commands attention. So that's something I've learned this year is platform the experts, put their picture front and center. Let everybody see that these are the people that are contributing to your content. The moment you started doing that, or rather the moment I started doing that, it changed click-throughs. It changed everything for us. So that is something I'm going to keep riding into the new year. Always platform the experts that people know and respect.
What kind of research do you do to find those experts?
I already have the network. So that's the good thing. Like I've been building that network for years. Like I've always felt building a community of my own, of people that I respect, is important. So I don't need to do that research. I always have a bank of names. Oh, if this is happening now, who do I need to reach out to that has insight on this specific thing? Boom. I know who I'm reaching out to. SEO marketing problem. There's an expert that I know to reach out to. And that kind of gives me a leg up. Do you understand? Gives me an advantage. Because, for example, if I want to talk about algorithm updates now, I'll reach out to Dr. Pete. I'll probably reach out to Lily Ray. These are people that talk about algorithm updates a lot. If I want to talk about, let's say, technical SEO, there's somebody that I know, not somebody, mostly people that this is what they do in their day to day. If it's about audits, I know people specialize in it. So I will always prioritize speaking to people that are known for talking about that issue above somebody else who talks about everything. So it's more specialist. That specialist deep insight knowledge that this person has. Again, that sets them apart from everybody else who is talking about the same thing.
Yeah, it also gives you the halo effect. So you basically acquire the authority and popularity from other people as well, and you bring it together.
Broad authority. I'm very big on broad authority. I use that in the webinars. If we platform someone who is an expert, we can attract their audience into our brand, and they can also tap from our brand and then get some people to follow them on social. So it's a very like symbiotic give and take relationship.
Yeah. When it comes to keeping all those people, your network in mind, just because I'm a nerd about productivity systems, do you have a database or is it just in your mind? And
Just my head.
okay,
It's just in my head. I wish I had a database that I went to, but honestly, it's just in my head. For example, now I'm doing my next roundup post for 2025 for the prediction stuff, and I have like maybe 22 contributions right now, and that's perfect. That's not what I was looking for. Everybody I reached out to were people that already I already started planning. Okay, when I need to do this is who I'm going to reach out to next year for the webinar. I already know who I'm going to reach out to for January. The podcast, I'm already like, oh, this person is perfect for this. My head is holding all this data, and when it's time, it's just unleashing it. But I should know out a spreadsheet or something.
you could actually sell it. So of timeliness. And speaking of AI, talking about AI, when it comes to brand, why do you think it's important now to invest in brand, both personal brand, but also companies in the midst of AI?
I think I made this prediction last year when I wrote that was prediction post. Seriously, if you're watching this and you're listening to this anyway, check out the prediction post we did for 2024. And I think I said that authority is about to become super important. People are going to be turning to experts that they trust because of how much misinformation is out there because of AI. You can literally click one button and get a 2,500 article that looks well written, that looks well optimized, and you can put it out there. It becomes difficult at some point to even tell what is AI and what is real. And how do I combat all of that noise? Because it becomes just noise. I turn to the people that I trust, the people that I know that have been giving me accurate information. I turn to those experts on LinkedIn because everybody has left Twitter these days. When I open my feed, I'm literally just typing their names. I want to see what this person has published recently. I want to stay on top of news through them because I trust them. It's the same with brands. We are going to the brands that we trust. I'm probably reading HubSpot for marketing information. I'm probably going to like search engine journal, search engine land. I'm looking at sources that I've been using for since I got into the industry. I don't want to find new sources. I don't want anybody new because I don't trust anybody new. I trust the folks that have been there for a while. So that's the thing with brand. It's the same with brand. It's the same with individuals. If you invest in brand now, you start to attract that loyal audience. That's the thing. It's loyalty. That loyal audience and that loyalty comes with trust. And that trust comes with repeat visits. And that repeat visit comes with action and other types of engagement. So there has never been a time as now to invest in brand. And there's something that was reviewed in the recent Google leaks, not just even the Google leaks. If you look at the SERPs right now, the SERPs will paint a clear picture that bigger brands that have high domain authority, that have high brand authority are dominating the SERPs. Smaller niche brands, they're being like kicked out of the SERPs. You can see it with Forbes ranking for everything. You can see it with Reddit showing up for literally almost every keyword you search for. If you look at the SERPs now, it's very difficult to find the smaller people on the SERPs. It is dominated by big brands. So you want your brand name to become so recognizable that even before people start doing that search on search engines, they're already thinking of you. So that when they look through the top 10 on the search engines and they see your brand name, you are the first result they click on, whether you're ranking number 1, 2, or 5 or whatever. That is the power of brand for me.
Yeah. And how can you start giving, let's say you're not so well known, what are some signals that you can give to Google, to AI, to let it know that you're building this brand? What are some of your favorite things?
I think that's even the wrong approach, trying to signal to Google or to AI, this people that you are the authority. I think you should be trying to signal to the people that you're trying to attract that is the right approach. Because if you signal to the people, Google uses click-through rates as a ranking, at least from what we saw in the Google leaks. So if you are signaling to people, they are not just coming into your website through Google. Social search is in. We are seeing that this younger generation, we are spending more time on Instagram or TikTok trying to find reviews rather than going to Google or any of that kind of traditional search engines. So if you're trying to get in front of them, you have to ask yourself, is it just Google they're using? No. Personally, I've actually started using ChatGPT, ask and answer questions. I use my Echo Dots, and the last webinar was talking about Apple Intelligence. I didn't even have Apple Intelligence until then. Apple Intelligence is coming to Siri. That's insane. So you have all these different ways that people are getting information these days. You have to become omnichannel. You have to start thinking, what can we do to attract traffic outside of Google? Because those click-throughs to your website still counts. That is the sign of authority. It's not just trying to get in Google, because you can easily become obsessed with that. It's trying to figure out, how do I diversify that we have enough search health, let me use that, data health, that we're not 100% reliant on Google. Once you start to build all those signals through social media, for example, now there's this channel on social media that I really like. It's called Female Content. Every time I see that content, I'm always smiling, I'm always happy. I like engaging with it. There are lots of brands like that do well on social, and that translates into click-through to their websites. If you start doing well on social, you start doing well through video, like what we're trying to do now with the webinar, with creating more video content, because we're realizing that people like to watch that kind of stuff. You start finding new ways to bring in that traffic. You start to see that will actually signal to Google that people are responding to your content, which means that your content is performing well. And then if you figure out a way to tie up all this work you're doing to your blog, for example, say you want to rank for this keyword. So you write the blog post. Cool. You figure out if there are other attached keywords to it. So you build a topic cluster. Also, you figure out how to snack out social content from those series of content you've created. Create some graphics. You find a way to make a short form video that is 5 minutes or 10 minutes, post that on YouTube. You chop it down even smaller, put it on stories. You take that content and you drag out as much juice as possible. So it's not just Google now that content is going to be on. It's probably also going to rank on video search also. It's probably also going to be showing up on social. All of this ecosystem that is signaling authority to Google, because we've seen now, again, I keep going back to that Google leaks, that Google is also pulling this authority from external sources, not just on SERPs.
Yeah. Speaking of this and how you stand out, you say it's better to own topics rather than owning keywords. What do you mean?
Yes. So say you think about inbound, for example, now. Literally, if I go into Google now and I type inbound, the first thing that is going to come out is HubSpot. That is one of the best examples of owning a topic. I need you to think of the wildest number you can think of. That is the number that represents the number of content that HubSpot has created around that topic of inbound. And you probably still fall short. I've created courses, videos, blog posts, infographics, free downloads, free tools. Like, they have created probably the most insane, comprehensive
It's an
cluster,
ecosystem.
yes, that I have seen around the topic. They absolutely own inbound. That is what I mean when I say it's better to own a topic. If you search for anything at all, anything, I don't care where you are in the funnel, top, middle, bottom, post, purchase that relates to that topic, HubSpot is going to come out. That is what it means to own a topic. You own it so comprehensively that you are the first person to show up when people are searching for anything related to the topic. And this is going to include any keyword that is under that topic. So it means that you're not just sharing slices of pies with other people. No, you own the whole pie, is what it means.
Yeah. So when let's say you want to own a topic, right? And there's a lot of things that I can do. Do a podcast, do a newsletter, do a webinar, blah, blah. Like in your case, you've done your practical marketer webinars, you've done the podcast as well. How do you decide what to focus on? Because you can't work on things, right?
Yes. I guess it depends on the platform. It's always platform specific for me. So for example, now my rule is this. If I have a topic and I think about if I cover this topic as a podcast, is somebody going to have to Google stuff to understand anything at all? Then that's not a podcast. But it sounds like something that people are going to learn from in an educational format. Then that's a webinar. Anything that has that how-to element is a webinar. Anything that has that, like what we're having here now, that discussion, back and forth elements, that's a podcast. And then I can take that webinar, like what I've started doing now, I can take that webinar and I can turn it into a series of blog posts. Like my King's my King's webinar that happened like a few months ago, I've chopped it down into 4 blog posts. The first one just dropped today. 4 blog. There's also like videos that I've chopped up for social. There's also going to be in the blog posts. There's also like graphics that we're going to use for social. Like we can eat up that webinar for a long time to come. That is how I think about it. So it's platform specific, first of all. Anything that I feel like is going to require like lots of slides, that's going to require a lot of content to understand. That's webinar, that's blog post. But anything that's going to be easy to talk about, that is going to be a podcast. And then we can also figure out, okay, this content that we're creating for the blog, how do we create supporting videos for it? And that is where the Whiteboard Friday is coming. So you see it. Content is feeding into each other. It's feeding into each other. It's giving us opportunities to interlink within each other. But also, we're also making sure that whenever we're publishing this content, it is engaging for that audience.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask, speaking of engaging, how do you find what works for a specific platform? Is it like putting out stuff and testing and seeing what works? Or
that's a very good question. I feel like because I listen to I listen to podcasts, I watch webinars, I read a lot of blog posts, like I'm always consuming content. I know what works as a consumer. So let's use podcasts as starting points. A lot of time when I listen to other people's podcasts, I have to go and Google stuff. I have to stop what I'm doing. It's like when you're trying to find direction to a place and you can't listen to music. You need silence to understand the maps. Yeah. That is how it feels then. And that's not the right way I want to feel when I'm listening to a podcast. I want to be able to clean my house. I want to be able to cook, be doing all that stuff, maybe even working out at the gym and be able to listen to a podcast. That is how it should feel. I should be nodding my head like this, banging. And then I should feel like I'm picking one thing from that podcast that makes me want.
Yeah.
That is how a podcast should feel. I shouldn't be stopping in between to try to like, whoa, this is too complex. I need to take a moment to understand it. No, it should be easy to listen to. So when I do podcasts, I'm always trying to do like case study format. So if you look at most for example, now a lot of the stuff we feature is storytelling format. Oh, how we built 100 backlinks for this brand that does Sunday roast, or how we drove 1 million revenue for this brand using this. It's super specific. You know what the end result is going to be. And then we just take you through that story from the start to the finish of the project. It's easy to listen to. For example, Women's History Month, we did very, very divisive topics that were important. We talked about women who don't want to have kids, but want to have like a career. We talked about women who are managing kids, but also with a career. We talked about women who have dual careers. We talked about the importance of having safe spaces for women. These are engaging stuff. These are the kind of things you do in a podcast, but not in a webinar. So you see, it still comes back to being audience specific. So regarding finding those topics for the podcast, I always like sticking to storytelling. Storytelling is always going to be the thing that wins for me because it's easy. It flows. There is a villain, which is the problem. And there is a hero, which is the solution. And then it just starts from that villain arc and then comes down to introduce the hero. And it just goes up to the solution, which is where, that nice case study format. So I like that for a podcast. And then with the webinars, I'm always thinking, what is going on right now that we can talk about. So I try not to book the webinars too far in advance so that it allows me to stay nimble. So, for example, now, maybe in January, we might bring someone to do something around search GPT or generative search. That is timely. Generative search is called, people are looking for guidance on that. That would be super interesting and relevant. Maybe in February, Google does something rash in reaction to one of the generative search. We'll bring in somebody to cover that. I just want to stay nimble with the webinar. I want it to be as relevant as possible. So whatever is happening right now in the industry, whatever people are facing as a problem that I'm seeing on my social feed, bring in somebody who is already solving that problem to cover that in the webinar. But I try to bring in people that already have their own audience. That's something I've seen that has been very helpful with the webinar. Someone who already has a built-in audience, so that even if I put their face and we don't even put their name, everybody knows who this person is. And people are going to sign up, not because of what they're going to talk about, but because of who is presenting it.
Yeah. A lot of times the topics have already been said in many different ways, but the perspective of that specific person and their influence matters more.
Exactly. Like our top 2 webinars this year were from Mike King and Lily Ray. It's a no-brainer because everybody knows who they are. People respect them. People want to hear from these 2 people. So we're bringing someone who is unknown but has something interesting to say. People are not going to tune in because they don't know who the person is. It's difficult to turn up for an hour someone that you don't know. Personally, I know how I think. I probably wouldn't even show up to that webinar because I don't know who the person is. How do I trust them? There's no loyalty there. But if you bring in someone that I know and you just put their face, I want the face to be recognizable, and I just put their face in there, people will sign up just to listen to that person. So again, that echo of AI, it still comes back to it. You come back to it with brand, personal brand name. That is what you use to come back to it.
Yeah. I really like your approach because it's very intuitive. You do your research, you know your stuff, but you're very in touch with your market, your audience, you know what they want. And also, I think with yourself, because you were, as you were explaining for the podcast, like listening to podcast while you're cleaning the house, blah, blah, blah. So you're very in touch what you like. And I think that kind of empathy also helps you create content that works better for people.
You see that thing you just said about empathy? I have written multiple LinkedIn posts about the importance of having empathy when you create content. Like, you have to wear the shoe of the person you're talking to and then ask yourself, if I saw this, would it make me act? If I wear the user shoe and I don't feel that urge to act when I read copy, then I know that it's probably not going to do well with the user. So I use that a lot when I'm writing the emails. I ask myself, okay, if I was the end user and I saw this email, will I want to open this? Would this make me want to act? And then that fuels how I create content, how I choose what we cover. It really fuels everything. Empathy is always like the forefront of my decision making.
When it comes to attracting maybe an audience that's different from how you think or your closest circle, what do you do to empathize with them? Do you have any specific ways, or is it more just...
So the thing is that I don't have that problem, thankfully, because I work in SEO. Like, I was doing SEO before I joined Moz. So I'm basically, I don't have...
audience.
Yes, exactly. I am a target audience. So I'm cheating in a way.
You're reading minds.
Exactly, because I am my own target audience. I know what works. I speak to these people every day. I see them at conferences. I have one-to-ones with them every day. So it's cheating if I'm being honest. So it's not my whole A to Z, top down. Everybody on my LinkedIn is a marketer. I won't connect with someone who is not like a vertical at all.
Yeah. Speaking again of empathy, I also wanted to connect it with traffic and SEO in a way. I remember when we were talking pages for one thing that you always try to emphasize when you're in our revisions, the edits, was to speak about quality traffic, and not all traffic is created equal, right? How do you make sure that you attract quality traffic that drives ROI?
Okay, so that's a very good question. I feel like it's easy to go after those top of the funnel terms that everybody is going after because they just drive traffic. But when you are a revenue-driven business, you have to prioritize bottom of the funnel where the money is. That is the quality traffic, if I'm being honest. The quality traffic is middle and bottom. The journey for somebody who is asking the question of what is SEO and then getting them to where they are looking at SEO tools and options. It's a long journey. You want to always start, for me, I always want to start from the bottoms up. If someone is trying tools, what would they be looking for? A lot of the time, they're looking at free. They're looking for modifiers that have free, that have tools, that have versus, all those kind of middle and bottom of the funnel keywords. That for me is the quality traffic. The top of the funnel is still important. It's still very important. But if we're being honest, how much of that top of the funnel converts? If you'll be surprised, I feel like if marketers, if we're honest, and we all release the numbers on how much top of the funnel traffic we're converting, it will be very minimal. It's great for the metrics, but how much of that is going into the pipeline? So for me, that is what I always, that's what I always put that, because if I'm a marketer, I know that's what I'll also be thinking. That is the message I want to give to people in SEO. You don't just want to attract traffic. You want to attract qualified traffic that is more likely to convert into leads and generate revenue for your business. So that is a better positioning for me for any keyword research tool than just attracting any type of traffic.
Yeah. You worked a lot on the Moz blog. And how do you think about balancing the educational value aspect of a blog versus also injecting some of the product you have to sell or hint at the product?
Oh, yeah. So I feel like that was something we were not doing very well, if I'm being honest. Like, we were not being as aggressive as we could be with internal linking, with our CTA to plug our product. And that's starting to change now. We're in the process of just rolling out some image CTAs that will be more engaging. I want CTAs that look pretty, that make me want to take it, that make me want to stop and look and read what the CTA is actually saying, because my brain is hardwired to scroll past most CTAs when I'm reading most blogs. If my brain is hardwired that way, I can assume that most end readers are also hardwired that way. We don't want to be sold to. So it's that balance. I want to give you educational content, but I also want to show you relevant stuff related to Moz that will help you apply what you're reading. So it's not going to be in every content, but anytime we're creating content that relates to Moz's code, I try to plug in, okay, we've got Keyword Explorer, here you go. Maybe these are something about link building. We've got this link building tool, here you go. So it's something we're probably going to be doing more of in 2025, showing those use cases like in a more dynamic formats. Okay, if you're looking at something around link building, maybe you can put in your website URL here, and that takes you to show you some link metrics for free. That would be cool, wouldn't it? So it's something that I think we're going to look at doing next year. How can we be not more aggressive, but how can we connect our products more deeply in content when it relates to our product offering, so that there is balance, but it doesn't feel like we're too salesy? Because something I've realized is that people forget that Moz is a business, and they see us like search engine journal, search engine land, publishers. We are not publishers. We might put out a lot of content, but we're not publishers. We are a SaaS product. So the product will always come first. And it's always like a shock to them when we work with some guest authors. And I'm like, this is not really something that aligns with what Moz is about. I can see the shock, but like most people forget. And it's not their fault. It's on us. We've been so focused on education that in a way, the product in terms of the blog has taken a step back, but that is gradually changing.
Yeah. And how do you think in terms of you're writing a blog, you have to decide, I'm gonna add a CTA to the product, or maybe a CTA to download something else that extends what I just said, like a guide or like an ebook or something. You decide based on the topic what to use for the CTA?
Yeah, so it might be for example, now, like I said, if it's a blog post around keyword research, obviously I plug in Keyword Explorer. If it's a blog post around link building, I plug in the Moz feature that relates to that. If it's a blog post about search intent, whatever it is, as long as it relates to something that we offer as a feature or as a product, it just has to connect. It has to be something that is already inside the article. And I'm saying, okay, we just talked about keyword research. Here is a free keyword research tool for you to try what you are learning.
Yeah. Which in a way, we go back to being relevant and timely. Relevant because it's the topic, and timely
relevant.
because
it always has to be relevant. If it doesn't work if it's not relevant.
Yeah, it's completely out of context otherwise.
Yes.
Speaking of blog writing, so the content that we wrote, for example, for a couple of pages, and the content that you are writing for other new pages, we develop kind of voice, tone, new positioning. How do you try to make sure that the kind of sales conversion copy of the site appears somehow in the blogs that you write, or you just focus on purely educating?
No, that's very difficult to do. Because let me tell you, if you're a marketer and you have, let's say you're a mid-level marketer, you can always tell when you're being sold to. It's
True.
like where the person is wearing a headphone. I think it's Jose Mourinho. And he's like taking the headphone off like this in annoyance.
Yeah.
It's like, this is not what I came here for. And it makes me feel like this person thinks I'm dumb. They're trying to sell to me. No. If you're going to educate, you want to go in hardcore on that education, but you also want to try to plug in product naturally. That's something I'm a huge fan of. Like,
Yeah.
plug product naturally. Again, that happens in text, that can happen in CTAs, but it has to feel natural. It has to feel like a natural extension of this thing I'm talking to you about so that it doesn't stick out as a sore thumb. And it can't be throughout the content. It has to be done in moderation. You get too aggressive, you lose people. It's simple. People are already being sold to from every corner. So it's doing it in moderation.
Yeah, you're just being helpful.
Yes.
Yeah, and I also think it's an important point for anyone who's writing anything. Always asking yourself, what kind of mindset are people who are gonna read this in at the moment? Because are they in like a mindset they are trying to make a decision, or are they trying to look for information and acting accordingly with the content you present?
The mindset thing, that I think that delves into empathy, if I'm being honest. It's like this thing I want to create as content. Who is going to receive it? What is the problem that they are facing? How am I going to solve the problem? So every time I ask for an outline, I always tell the guest author to give me those three things. What is the problem and the pain points? What is your solution going to be? And how are you going to solve the problem? What is the person going to take away after reading this that solves that problem? It's like I'm getting them to think about empathy. Get them to think about, I'm not just creating content here. What is the problem that I'm actually going with my content? And you can see that outline because now they are now looking at it from, this is the problem I want to solve. And this is how I'm going to solve it. It completely changes everything. You look at
Yeah, focusing on the problem. Speaking of problems, actually challenges, I know that you embarked on a big challenge of auditing. What was it for most? Like 1.4
yeah.
million pages? How's that
Look,
going? How did you
that's not
approach it?
look, that thing is very insane, man. Like right now, the place where I am now is that the audit is ongoing. The audit is going to be ongoing for a while. So we are doing with Tom Kappa's help, we are in the process of auditing the community center. So that takes up maybe 30% of the workload. We still have a lot of content on the blog. If you think about how old Moz is, then I want you to imagine how much blog content we've put out since inception till now, or how much Learn Center content we've put out. And I've been discovering so many things that I've just been like, oh my God, this used to be something in SEO back in the day. It's crazy, but a lot of it has been figuring out what can I automate. If I get all these URLs from Screaming Frog, how do I automate the decision making? So something we've done is that we're using a milestone of, okay, if a blog post has been read maybe less than maybe 0 to 10 times in a year, maybe we can redirect that somewhere else and then we redirect it to the pillar page. See, that takes off maybe 50% of the work once you automate that. And then the remaining URLs, we can look at it and say, is this still relevant? A lot of the time, if it's not relevant, maybe outdated news, something that was related to date. If it's something that cannibalizing another page, which happens a lot, which is a problem we have, and that is to be expected with a blog of that size, then you figure out which of these pages is performing better, and then you take the other cannibalized page and you consolidate it into the page. That has been the workflow for the most part. Automating what needs to go, figuring out what is cannibalized, figuring out what is outdated, and then the pages that are related to our product offering, how do, to an extent, create a blueprint to update these pages at scale. That is literally where I'm at now. I'm in that process, updating pages at scale, And I'm starting with the Learn Center because that is the content we control. And then we can figure out how we can do that on the blog side, although that might be more difficult because it's mostly taught by external publishers. But yeah, it's been a fun project. It's been a fun project, honestly. With the product pages, some of the pages that we've updated had 3x, 300% increase in traffic. That's insane. I didn't even know that updating a page could give you that kind of results. Wow. Yeah, it's been a fun project. I'm learning so much personally about what can I automate. I am constantly seeking new ways to automate stuff so that I can be faster because it is a lot of content.
Yeah. I wanted to go into automation as well, but when it comes to updating content, what kind of updates are having the most impact, and what kind of updates in general do you typically do?
Honestly, that's another thing I've learned is that a lot of the time for the blog side now, a lot of the stuff that we've updated has not really had the impact that I expected it to have. The impact has happened more on the product side, on the landing page side. But typically, if I update a page, I want to see an uplift in the ranking of the page. Oh, hey, Google, I've fed this page some new information. I've improved the, I said, hey, Google, and it activated Google on my device. I want to improve the right, added new content. I've added maybe some new graphic. And what we've seen is that there's been an uplift in traffic. Don't get me wrong. There's been an uplift, but I think because I'm comparing it with the kind of traffic uplift we've seen on the product pages, I'm not seeing that kind of return on investments on the blog side. And that's making me think, okay, maybe the answer is not to invest so much time updating all this content. Maybe the answer is to find a way to balance updating all this old content, but also publishing new content, because new content always gives us more traffic than updating old contents.
Yeah, makes sense. So automation, what kind of automation are you trying to build?
Right. I'm sorry to disappoint anybody who's watching this. Everything I'm doing with automation lives in an Excel, using a Google Sheet. And it's probably going to be that way. Yeah. I just learned, like, there's stuff I'm learning which I do on automation, but everything I do is in a Google Sheet, and it is not
nice. Yeah, it's very useful. Yeah, because if you think about it, Google Sheets has been around for ages. It's going to be around for way long. So anything you can learn there is going to be helpful.
Yeah, it's like all the URLs are in Google Sheets. It's figuring out how to make my decisions faster, and all those automations are right inside those Google Sheets. And honestly, that's good enough for me. Good enough for me.
And also, like myself, I tried in the past, for example, creating templates for clients on new platforms that came out. But then what happens? Those platforms disappear because maybe they were like early stages, were nice, but not fully fleshed out. What's going to always stay around? Sheets, Excel.
Oh my God, that reminds me. I think next week we should be having a blog post on automations and data analysis tool. So it's part of the My King series we're doing. And oh my God, that guy is using AI on a level that I'm not seeing anybody else using, honestly. So one of the sections, the first section of published today is on SEO use cases. Next Monday, I think, is content use cases. And then there is and automation, I think automation and data analysis use cases next week. So look out for the Moss blog for that. So he has all the different, it's not just tools. He has also created his own processes. Like he has coded like some insane processes for automating stuff. So if you're looking for ways to automate, to analyze data at scale, look out for that blog post. It will blow your mind.
I will definitely look for it, especially because I can imagine maybe they are different use cases, but it's always stuff that I can learn and apply to my own use cases.
I think we are so used to just seeing tools, but not people building on top of those tools to squeeze more juice out of the tools. So that is where he's at. He's just, honestly, the guy is just gifted.
Yeah. All right. One last question is, what one piece of advice would you give content marketers now that you think would help them?
I would say invest in your personal brand, honestly. If you want to be the voice that people listen to, invest in your own personal brand. 2, encourage people within your company to publish content so that they also become authorities and they also become thought leaders. Like, I wish we had more people that wanted to do this. So if you can, I know that this is something that some companies have done successfully. They've created employee-generated content programs where they build they build employees into thought leaders. If you can do that, honestly, it's something worth doing. That way, we are not relying on external authors for thought leadership. You have these thought leaders within your own organization, because it is internal thought leaders that make a brand a thought leader. If you really think about it, it's not just broad authorities. The people inside coming to say, oh, for example, this is how we use our tool to achieve this, or this is how we use our tool to solve this problem. Solving problems is what makes you a thought leader. If you can get people within your brand and people from the outside to show more use cases on how your tool is solving problems, I would say invest in that. Invest in partnerships. Figure out a way to collaborate with the thought leader that people respect to create content that you can put on your website. That way, you are borrowing from the authority and you're also lending them authority of your brand. And be omnichannel. I think I said something on LinkedIn that we need to stop sucking on Google's titties. And we need to stop being dependent on search traffic. So how can we be omnichannel? We can be omnichannel by repurposing. Honestly, that's the strongest way. Like, I'll take the content I did with my king again as an example. I did that webinar with him. It's becoming 4 blog posts. It's creating maybe 5, 6 videos. It's creating multiple graphics. It's creating multiple social content. The blog post will live on the blog, the video. We can publish all of those short videos on YouTube, on Shorts, on so many other platforms. The social content goes on social. That is how you become omnichannel. It's taking basically the same content and serving it in different ways that people would like to consume them in. Because not everybody came to the webinar. The webinar had maybe 1,500 registrations. Moz has a way bigger audience than that. We have people that like to consume blog. We have people that like to watch webinar. We have people that like to watch short videos. We have people that like to just look at graphics to see the highlights. Create content to give to all these different people. So, big challenge for content marketers in 2025. How can we be omnichannel, but in a way that makes both the individuals and the brand itself become totally us?
Nice. Love it. And on this note, thank you so much, Chima. It's been really... Where can people find you? So LinkedIn, I'll put the links as well in the show notes.
LinkedIn.
Moz.com.
Moz.com, but to be honest, you better find me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn a lot. So
you post a lot of spicy hot takes, which I love.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you so much, Chima. Have a great day.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you so much for listening to the pod. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, the best thing you could do to support the show and help me as a small business owner would be to leave a review. Head over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and let me know what you think. If you don't want to miss future episodes, subscribe, and if you have any feedback, questions, or suggestions for future episodes, just hit me up on LinkedIn at Christopher Silvestri or Twitter at SilvestriChris. Speak to you next time.